Mr. Secretary General, thank you for this interview and this great gardens. And I will start, of course, with Turkey and the war operation in Syria. Can I have your comment about that operation?
I think what we have seen is that the situation in northern Syria has become even more difficult, and I have stated that I count on Turkey to ensure that what they do is not further escalating the situation in northern Syria, and that they show restraint and that we avoid even further human suffering. I've also stated that Turkey is the NATO ally which has suffered the most when it comes to terrorist attacks. They are very much affected by the instability to the south of their borders because of all the instability we have seen, and they host millions of refugees, including millions of Syrian refugees. So this is a difficult situation, and therefore the importance of restraint is something I have highlighted very much.
Are there limits in this operation? I mean, we talk about a war maybe without the United Nations permission, and NATO is operating too in the area.
Well, NATO is part of the global coalition to defeat ISIS, as is the United States, which is leading the coalition, Turkey, Greece, and many others. And we have altogether made enormous progress in the fight against the common enemy, ISIS, Daesh. We have liberated all the territory that ISIS controlled, freed millions of people. We have to remember that not so long ago, ISIS controlled a territory as big as the United Kingdom, 8 million people, and they were threatening both Syria and Iraq. They were threatening Baghdad. And it is important that we do everything we can to preserve these gains and that we don't jeopardize the progress we have made. And therefore I strongly believe also that we need to understand that the fight against ISIS is not over. ISIS is still out there. They have gone on the ground. They are gone on the ground both in Syria and in Iraq, and they try to also get a foothold other places in the world. So regardless of disagreements on other issues, it is extremely important that all NATO allies stand united in the global coalition to defeat ISIS and continue the fight against ISIS.
Yes, but yesterday we heard that Kurdish announced that they will stop operating against ISIS. I want to mention that NATO is a member of the coalition against ISIS. So what's the plan now?
NATO has played a key role together with all of the NATO allies and together with many others in making progress in the fight against ISIS. And we have made a lot of progress, but the fight is not over. That's the reason why it is important to avoid that what is going on now is undermining our ability to fight ISIS, to stand together in a common fight against a common enemy, because we have seen the horrendous violence ISIS has been responsible for, beheading of people, horrendous violence against women, and the whole idea of creating a caliphate is a really dangerous project. So we need to continue to fight them, and that is what NATO does in the global coalition, but also through our training mission in Iraq, where we train the Iraqi forces so they can stabilize their own country, make sure that ISIS don't return to Iraq. And it's also what we do together with Greece and all the NATO allies in Afghanistan, where ISIS now try to establish themselves, and we need to make sure that ISIS is not able to re-establish the caliphate in Afghanistan that they have lost in Iraq and Syria. So it is important to continue the fight against our common enemy, ISIS.
Let's come now to Russia and the role of NATO, the modern role of NATO. Now, this is something that you are trying to make now. We face a new relationship between Russia and Turkey the last couple of years. So Turkey has already bought the S-400 missiles. Is this a danger for the coalition?
Well, it's a national decision what kind of weapon system each and every ally acquire. What matters for NATO is interoperability, that the systems can work together, and this is something I have highlighted again and again, the importance of interoperability. I also welcome the fact that there are also talks going on between Turkey and other NATO allies, France and Italy, about the possibility of buying a French-Italian system, SAM-T, or an American system, the Patriot batteries, and also other systems. So we welcome those contacts, and what matters for NATO is interoperability.
Do you think that sooner or later maybe we can face NATO without Turkey?
That's not an issue, and we all have to understand that yes, there are differences between NATO allies on different issues, and sometimes these are serious differences on serious issues. At the same time, the strength of NATO is that we have been able to unite around our core task to protect each other. That has made NATO to the strongest and most successful alliance in history, and Turkey has been extremely important in the fight against Daesh, bordering Syria and Iraq. The fact that the global coalition has been able to use infrastructure bases in Turkey has been key in the progress, or making possible the progress we have made in the fight against Daesh.
Turkish ships now are operating in Cyprus exclusive economic zone. Is that legal?
It is important that all nations respect international law, also when it comes to territorial waters, but it's not for NATO to judge on these legal issues. We have other institutions that are responsible for making that kind of judgments.
I want to come to the major problem of the immigration issue. What's NATO's point of view, and what's going on with the ships of the Aegean activity? I mean, they're not effective until now. Turkey is helpful.
Well, I think first of all, compared to the levels of migrants that were illegally crossing the Aegean Sea not so long ago, back in 2015, the numbers have been significantly decreased, or they have gone significantly down. One of the main reasons for that is, of course, the agreement between Turkey and the European Union, Greece, on curbing the illegal migration across the Aegean Sea. I know that there still are people crossing, but much less, fewer than not so many years ago.
Not in the last few months.
But we have been able to make progress, and that's very much because of the agreement between EU and Turkey. NATO's role has been to help to implement that agreement, and we do that by having the naval presence in the Aegean Sea. We currently have 6 ships in that operation. What we do is that we create a platform for Turkey, Frontex, the EU border agency, Greece, to work together.
The result is not enough.
And also sharing information. The mandate of NATO is not to stop the boats, but our mandate is to bring Turkey and EU, Greece together. I think we do that because I've been there. I've visited the mission. I've seen how Greek and Turkish ships are operating together, and I think the NATO presence is creating the framework for that happening. Second, we also sight or see the boats, and many of the first sightings are done by NATO ships, and then we share that information either with the Turkish Coast Guard or with Frontex and the Greek Coast Guard. And by doing that, we have helped to enforce this agreement.
Recently we had the agreement with North Macedonia, you know it very well. So do you think now the situation in the area is more stabilized?
Also, I know that the agreement, the Prespon agreement between Greece and North Macedonia is a controversial and sensitive issue, both in Greece and in North Macedonia. But I welcome the agreement because I think it has been extremely important to solve a problem which has been there for many, many years, the name issue. The agreement now has created the conditions for North Macedonia to join NATO. They are in the process of doing exactly that. We have signed the accession protocol and they will soon become a full member of NATO. I think that's important for North Macedonia, it's important for Greece, it's important for the whole region, because it's yet another step to make sure that this is a region where we have cooperation, where we have stability, and that's also extremely important for the economic prosperity in this region.